Hi, everybody. How are you doing? Welcome, welcome. I'm so glad to have you all here. And welcome to the Let's Break the Silence on Endometrial Cancer. My name is Tiffany Drummond, and I am with the Endometrial Cancer Action Network for African Americans. And on behalf of AZI US, I want to welcome you all here today. It's going to be amazing. I know that already. So let's talk about the Spot Her initiative, right? What this really is about is not only breaking the silence, but let's kind of bend the conversation around our gynecological health and what that looks like and why we can't talk about that in social settings or in public, like at the nail salon, like men do at the barbershop, right? Why can't we do that when we're in our own social settings and feeling comfortable? So I want to thank the Dallas Ultimate Women's Expo and everybody here today and everybody in the back. Make sure you go check out our truck as well. So I am thrilled today with our wonderful panelists. We have Dr. Yolanda Lawson, who is amazing, Lisa Beck, and Mikki Godwin. And we are going to be talking about, again, endometrial cancer, which we also call EC for short. So if you hear us say that, EC means endometrial cancer. And so what we're really doing here is really raising awareness about endometrial cancer, because I'm pretty sure we know about other cancers, right? We know about other cancers that exist in the world, and gynecological cancers and gynecological health in general is an underrepresented topic that we don't really get to talk about. With that being said, let's meet our participants. I'm going to start with Lisa and then Mikki and Dr. Lawson, but if you can say hi to our audience and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Lisa Beck, and I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I was diagnosed with endometrial cancer in March of 2023. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mikki Goodwin, and I was diagnosed in 2019, and I live in Houston, Texas.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Yolanda Lawson. I'm a women's health expert. I'm an OB-GYN based here in Dallas, Texas, and I'm the 124th president of the National Medical Association, hence the medal.
Absolutely. I said you better make sure you mention. She is amazing. So just to give you an overview about what we're going to be talking about today, again, it's about endometrial cancer awareness, but not only that, we want to talk about, their shared experiences with endometrial cancer. And of course, Dr. Lawson is going to give us some expert advice and knowledge and education on the topic as well. And ways we can spark the conversation. So when you leave here today, I want you to go home and tell your sister friend, your cousin friend, girl, how your lady parts doing? Let's talk about it, okay? That's what I want you to do. All right, so I want to get started with a very important question, and I think we all need to listen to it because not everybody knows what endometrial cancer is. And I can say this with people I know who are educated, did not know what endometrial cancer was, okay? So, Dr. Lawson, if you can start with, what is endometrial cancer?
Certainly. So endometrial cancer is uterine cancer. It's a form of uterine cancer. And so I like to explain to women, when you think about your uterus, there is a lining in our uterus. That is the endometrium. And so the uterus is the same thing as the womb. It's a cancer of the womb. And so the endometrium is the same as where we generate our menstrual period from. That's what sheds every month when you have a menstrual cycle. And so endometrial cancer is a cancer of the womb.
Thank you for mentioning that. And also because I'm always learning, even though I know about endometrial cancer. But if you can kind of talk to us, what are the symptoms of endometrial cancer?
So signs and symptoms. So most commonly, the symptom is abnormal bleeding. So if you're a younger woman and you're still menstruating, it could be in abnormalities with your periods, more frequent bleeding, prolonged periods. If you're a postmenopausal woman, and by the way, endometrial cancer is most common, right, as you're older in a postmenopausal woman. For a postmenopausal woman, it is crucial and critical if you experience bleeding, call the doctor, go see the doctor. It's very important. It's a really extreme warning sign. And so endometrial cancer is treatable, and it's even more treatable when it's caught early. And that's especially important for Black women. The second thing, when it comes to Black women, we're twice as likely to die from endometrial cancer. Couple reasons why. You heard me say, many times Black women show up at an advanced stage. They can also have more aggressive types of endometrial cancer. It is extremely important for the examination. And so you keep hearing me say early diagnosis. I think anybody in this room likely knows it's always important to be early, to get an early diagnosis for any type of cancer. because it's more easily and readily treatable. And so that's why going for your annual exam every year. One thing that I commonly hear is confusing to women is now that your doctor may say, oh, you don't need a pap smear, but every 3 years, every 2 years, every 5 years. But that still does not eliminate the need for your annual exam, because we do more than just a pap smear at that exam. When you think about the woman's reproductive system, there are multiple organs. The pap smear, I'm going to ask for audience participation. What does the pap smear screen for? Cervical cancer. Cervical cancer. And so the pelvic exam is where we're examining the ovaries, the uterus, and the other organs of the system. So it is still important to have that annual examination.
I am so about that. I believe in that. And thank you so much for saying that. And I also just want to say about her saying getting treated early. So I'm not just a moderator because I like to talk, because I do, but also my mother was diagnosed postmenopausal at stage 3, right? And so when she said, if you catch it early, your gynecological health is so important, because before you even have to get there, right? If we talk about our health and what she was just mentioning about going to get your pap smear and things like that. So thank you again so much for that. That was amazing. Before we get started about your actual journey, Lisa, I'm going to start with you. I do want to talk, cancer talk can be fun. Okay. So tell me something fun about you, Lisa.
I'm not a real fun person.
Yes, she is. Yes, she is.
I like to work out. I like to read about health and nutrition. I love to spend time with my family, my dogs. And
oh, that is fun. Come on. Okay. All right. So, okay, Mikki, tell me something fun about yourself.
With me, I love to be with my family. I have 5 wonderful, amazing adult children and grandchildren. So we spend a lot of time every month. Either we're bowling or we're skating or we're going to the movies. We take pictures like every other year. And then I do grandparent pictures like every other year. So I'm super picture person.
So apparently both of them are very active. They need to rub off on me. So what I want to do is I really want to talk now, and I'll start with you, Mikki. Tell me what led up to your endometrial cancer diagnosis. What was that journey like with your symptoms and things like that leading up?
Well, for me, in the beginning, I went through menopause early. I went to menopause about 45. So in 2019, I heading up into my 50th birthday, in January, I started spotting. And so I'm thinking, okay, maybe this is part of the menopause, even though I had already been through it at 47. But my mind was thinking, okay, this must be part of that. And so I waited until about March, January, February, March. And the spotting didn't start. It became bleeding. So now I'm bleeding all of this time, stop. And I started having aches in my back. Hips started hurting, irritated, fatigue. I was getting tired because I was already anemic. So that just made it worse because I'm just constantly losing blood. And so as the bleeding started and the pain, and I'm still thinking, okay, I don't have insurance for this if it's something bigger. So of course I went to Dr. Google. And I started searching Dr. Google, which made it worse because now I'm picking on all of the stuff that they're saying that it could be, but never once did they say anything about endometrial cancer. So from January till around July, which was my 50th birthday, I'm just kind of walking through this because I don't have the insurance. I'm not telling anybody that I'm going through this, none of my children, my husband, nobody. I'm not telling anybody. So I'm just going through this until I can find out. I got hired with my job in June. So July, my insurance kicked in, and that's when I set up my appointment. But all of this time, I'm still constantly bleeding. I'm still having the aches and the pain. I'm very fatigued. So I'm coming home from work, and I'm sleeping. Coming home because I have no more energy left. So October the 17th.
So how long is this now? What's that time?
January to October. So almost a year into this is when I did a full hysterectomy. I went to the doctor in July. I did her in all of the tests, and they told me that it was endometrial stage 3. I had no idea what endometrial stage 3 was. I had no idea of the stages. I had no idea of any of that. So once I did the full hysterectomy in October, And that's when I was found that I was diagnosed with endometrial cancer stage 4. And we did a full hysterectomy.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I hope you all got some of those important points that she made, right? One, that we're scared because of money, insurance. Two, we have obligations like work and family and things like that. But, if you want to be here for your family, you want to be here for yourself, or be here for your job, you got to make sure that you get in front of your health, right? And there are resources and support that we'll be able to, talk about and ways to help you with that. So thank you so much for sharing. Now, Lisa, everybody's experience is different. So kind of tell me what led up to your diagnosis with endometrial cancer.
So I started having some perimenopause symptoms right around the age of 49. And I went to my doctor and she did a pap smear and that was normal. And she said, well, I think we just need to put you on hormones and that'll cure everything. During this time, actually my whole life, my whole adult life, I had always had really heavy periods. And so I was having extremely heavy periods with a lot of pain. And I told the doctor that, but she said not to worry about it because that's just how I am. So I started on the hormones and the bleeding just kept continuing. And this was back in I want to say like 2020. And I finally had a colposcopy, which I thought that was the only biopsy that I could have. I didn't know there was another biopsy and that was normal. So I continued to have an intense bleeding so bad that I was so embarrassed that I was going to go through my clothing and it impacted my entire life. I went on a vacation in August of 2022 and my parents came to meet me and I was in the ocean and I felt something coming out of my body that I knew wasn't good. And I was soaked in blood. I was so embarrassed. I was just hoping nobody saw me. And I ran to the bathroom and I did have a change of clothes. And I called my doctor and she said, well, that doesn't sound good, but I wouldn't really worry. We did all these tests. So then I just didn't really think anything of it. And my life was just about getting to the bathroom and making sure I didn't have blood on my clothes. And I was anemic at different times. So I would take iron supplements and I just got used to living like this until March of 2023, when I had a day where I had clots the size of lemons the entire day. So I called that same doctor again, and she said, well, I think you should come in for an endometrial biopsy. And I said, what is that? We did a colposcopy, we did a pap smear, my blood works normal. Why do I have to come in for some other test? And then I found out that following Monday when the phone call came at 8:00 in the morning, and it was the doctor, and she told me I had endometrial cancer. And so that's how it evolved for me.
Thank you so much for sharing that and for being so open and honest about what you were going through. And I know many of us who have a menstrual cycle, especially if it's a heavy period, we think that's how we're supposed to live our life. And that's not true. You can have heavy periods, right? But if you think it's not normal for you, where you can't go outside or you can't leave your bed and things like that, that really isn't normal. And so you do want to get those things checked out, and also not wanting to be able to share that, right, with someone, even your loved ones, right? And so this brings me to another point about why we're having this Spot Her initiative, is that, we can talk about this again, we can just be in the nail salon, chilling, right? Speaking of nail salon, I would like these two ladies to show their nails. Don't look at mine because mine are from the drugstore, but theirs are very nice. So they got their nails done yesterday, and they had this very unique experience where they were able to talk and share with a nail tech out of the area. So if you all could just kind of talk about what that experience was like, and did you feel that you were more apt to coming open to someone, in a setting that made you feel more comfortable?
I did. Yesterday was absolutely amazing. The nail tech was amazing. I'm not one that wear extravagant nails or all of the stuff. I barely go to the nail salon. And so she did my nails according to the conversation and according to what she felt from me. I didn't tell her what I wanted. She didn't ask me what I wanted. She just had the conversation, and the conversation flowed. We talked about my personal experience. We talked about some of the experience that she went through. So it was just a good conversation, a very good flow. And it was just good to it got very emotional. She shared some tears, and it was like, okay, this feels natural. It felt easy. And then I look good with my nails.
Okay. Okay. What about you, Lisa? And your nails look lovely, by the way. I love them. So tell me about your experience yesterday.
It was a really wonderful experience. It was very cathartic for me because, gynecological cancer is like a little bit like you don't really want to talk about it. Like I didn't talk about it ever. And I think that's what contributed to me not getting diagnosed for 2 years, because if I felt more comfortable, maybe I would have said to a girlfriend, hey, are you bleeding constantly every day, all day? And then maybe I would have insisted or looked or maybe even heard about what an endometrium is before. So it was really good to talk about that, and I would talk about that in that setting. And maybe someone else who was going through something could, push their doctor a little bit and say, maybe this isn't normal. Maybe maybe is there another test? And if I had known, I would have asked for an endometrial biopsy, and I maybe wouldn't have had to have such, a very extensive surgery. And so if I could save anybody from having to go through that because of the knowledge, I think that makes the whole journey worth it for me.
Well, that's why you're on this stage right now. You're doing that right now. And what they're talking about is actually called shared experiences. So when you're sitting somewhere and you're talking about experiences that you have, and maybe I had that too, it's called a shared experience, right? And so you never know until you talk about it, until you ask. And so with that being said, Mikki, I want to ask you, before your endometrial cancer diagnosis and you became this advocate that you are, what was the conversation like with your friends and family about your gynecological health?
Oh, it was non-existent. It was non-existent. We didn't have conversations about this. I have 2 daughters, and I really didn't have the conversation. We talked about the menstrual because wanting them to be expectant of that, but because I did not know, that conversation never happened.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so, if anybody wants to add to that, I can say for myself too, where's the conversation, right? We really don't talk about that, especially in our family. Not everybody, but that it's one of those things where it's like, it's private, because it's the private part. You don't have to talk about it. But we're trying to end that stigma literally today. This brings up our next topic. Okay, we're going to talk about ways you can spark that conversation. So the Spot Her initiative is what we have. And we have a truck over there. Make sure you go check it out. It's really about opening up that conversation and being able to educate yourselves and take that education back to your friends and family and community about what you know, right? No one's expecting you to be a doctor. No one's expecting you to be a clinician. But what you can do is say, this is what I learned today at the Dallas Ultimate Women's Expo. I learned about endometrial cancer. That's enough. That's a start, right? Dr. Lawson, I have a question for you because you do see patients. So in your patient setting, do your patients ever talk to you about bringing up their topics like, oh, I was talking to so-and-so? Do they talk about bringing up social settings and having that conversation?
Absolutely. So, what happens beyond the exam room, right? So, of course, in the exam room, I can have really one-on-one personal conversations with patients. What happens in social settings? I do think it's a place. Gynecologic discussions can be challenging. Many people may be private about it. It can have implications around sexual health, reproductive health. So it can be complicated. I understand that. But there probably is a role. It's not uncommon for someone to come in and see me because they shared something with a sister, a friend, their aunt, and someone said, you need to go see the doctor, right? Absolutely. Also, there's knowledge sharing, and also learning from peers. But again, putting that into context, right? I'm clear about when you need to really go and see about yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is such an important part that when you go to your doctor, and also we don't want to be honest with our doctors, right? They'll say, how are you feeling? Oh, I'm fine. But I was passing clots, but you didn't want to say that, right? And so the thing is, you want to be very honest with your doctors. And if you are, again, you can go to your doctor and say, well, so-and-so said this, and I should get checked out. That's what your healthcare provider is there for, right?
But you got to tell the OB-GYN everything. The OB-GYN knows everything.
Now, hold on. Listen, I can tell you that I get prepared from our OB-GYN better than I get for a date, okay? Like, I'm ready for that, okay? So, absolutely right. I also just want to say, just side note, because I'm sitting here thinking, in terms of the nails and all those things, right? If you paint your nails peach, because I don't know if you know that peach is a color for endometrial cancer, right? I call it OPP, other people's pink, because we need our own little thing too. So if you paint your nails pink and you use the hashtag #SpotHerForEC, AZI will donate on behalf of that, right, to this cause. So I just wanted to put that out there, and I'll probably reiterate that again before we all leave. And thank you, Dr. Lawson. I'll be more honest next time I go to my OB-GYN. So do you have any suggestions, though, for people like myself to talk about my GYN health with my friends and my loved ones?
Yeah, so it's important. When it comes to family, I was sharing with them a little bit earlier. I'm still waiting on the birds and bees conversation from my mother. My mother is very private. And so generationally, some of you may share that. Generationally, women didn't talk about menopause. They didn't talk about any of these things. And now without much of this being taught in school, it's a barrier, right? How do you learn? And so I spend quite a bit of my time just really educating young women. I'm often asked by women, when should I bring my daughter to the OB-GYN, right? And so typically for me, that's usually around 11 or 12. How do you spark these conversations with family? It's important to learn about family history and the implications. So many times women think their history is only pertinent based upon their mother's history. You're only half of your mother. The father and the paternal history is equally important to me as your physician in helping to know what things you may be at risk for. And so I talk to women about that all the time. Women want to relate their maternal, obstetric, everything. Well, my mother had this. That's the one time it really doesn't matter. We need more than that. And so it's very important to have these conversations with your sisters, with your aunts, the grandmother. The grandmothers are a wealth of information. And then with your parents, both of your parents.
That was so amazing. And I think that's an important point because a lot of us don't think about that because when we have our gynecological health, we think it's only on our mother's side. As Dr. Lawson just cleverly explained, that's not true. You're only half of that, right? And so, it's important that we get to understand our family history, right? Even if you still have your grandmother, you still have your grandfather, aunties and uncles and all of that, make sure you just ask them, how was Uncle so-and-so or great Uncle so-and-so, right? Just kind of ask those questions. So you can get more information about your own health when you go to someone like Dr. Lawson who's going to ask you about it. Okay, because you will.
Oh, I got stories.
I know you do. I love it. I love it. So again, I just want to reiterate the importance of cancer awareness. Is everybody getting the message though today? Is everybody okay, come on with it. All right. Thank you so much. So I really want to ask because again, we all have a personal connection and professional connection to this cause. But I want to ask you, Lisa, why is it so important for you to share that story and to be so open about your experiences?
So I'm really anxious to share this story because I don't want another woman to have a complete and total hysterectomy and you're just left feeling kind of empty like I am. But I like to feel like the journey was worth it because I get to share this experience with you all so that you go for early detection so that you don't have to suffer, unnecessarily with clotting and pain and embarrassment and be ashamed and just never mention it. You can go get help. I could have done something else, but I didn't know there was anything wrong. And I was too embarrassed to talk about it because I grew up in an era when you didn't talk about that. So I just didn't talk about it.
And thank you so much for sharing. I know it took a lot and you're such a big person in this space. I think you're part of some groups and everything. You lead groups as well, support groups. And so you can do that as well. Like you don't have to have it to get knowledge and support. You don't have to have it, right? So what about you, Mikki? Because you shared your story and been very open.
Yeah, for me, it's more because of the lack of knowledge that I had. The lack of knowledge because I had never heard of endometrial cancer. It was never brought up to me. The risk it was just never a topic. So being able to go through this and experience it, and I always say, whatever I go to, God, there has to be a why. And so walking through this and being able to tell my story, to share the information, it's my why. I would say I was trusted to walk through this because of this right here, being able to talk to every woman, bring to it, they're acknowledged. I do stuff like this at my job. I have open conversations because I don't want anybody else to go with the thing of not knowing and then having that spotting or having that blood and thinking it's nothing because it's just so much more. And it could be nothing, but then it could be something. And that's what we want to spot her. We want to spot her ahead of time.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody. I know we're going to have to get on stage really quick. I am so happy this crowd is here. I hope you all got a wealth of knowledge. Again, I want to thank Lisa, Mikki, and Dr. Lawson. I want to thank you all for getting all the questions that you had. I hope you got a little bit of knowledge. I hope you go home, talk to your loved ones and your family and your friends, get your nails done, and do Spot Her for EC hashtag on social media. So please do that. Thank you so much. And also go to www.spother
spot her
For
for EC.com.